Okay, so welcome everyone to this second DEDEP webinar. My colleague Gabriella is about to share the slides, I think, so you can see them all. Yeah, welcome from a rainy Pisa where in Italy, where I'm an Alpine base. So my name's Nick Ferguson, and I work for an SME called Trust IT Services, and we specialize in dissemination support, both as dissemination lead in EU-funded projects and also in other booster-type activities, such as the booster, which serves the Horizon Europe project. So DEDEP, however, focuses on the digital funded projects and looks to provide a framework for a set of support services for digital funded projects in dissemination and exploitation. So if you go to the next slide, please. So today's webinar, we're very pleased to welcome our panelists, who you can see their faces above. Okay, they'll be joining us towards the end of the webinar, where we'll be focusing on three projects which encourage clustering and joint activities between projects in different strands of the digital program. And also a sister project of DEDEP, which is DEP for All, which provides information and improving knowledge on the digital program from national contact points. I'll be joined by Lorenzo Valeriani from Metagroup, the other partner in the DEDEP project. And the objective of today's webinar is to take stock of a questionnaire that many of you may have completed, where we tried to examine and collect needs and requirements around dissemination exploitation, and then to present the pilot actions which our project will be providing from June onwards. So we're going to give a high-level overview of these services so we can create interest in them and also launch an expression of interest, because we're looking for projects who are interested in applying for these support services. Next slide, please. So everything's going to be recorded because we want to publish this on the DEDEP website, okay? So just bear that in mind, not that anyone's going to do anything bad. We encourage you, though, to ask questions. We want this to be interactive. There'll be time during the presentations that you can ask questions, but also please use the Q&A box below, which you'll see in the bar below on your screens. Here, this means that we can collect the questions and the speakers can also answer them live directly through the platform. Okay, so this would be useful so we can also record what some of these answers and the questions. Okay, and I can see people already introducing themselves on the chat, so please do. One of our objectives as a project is to encourage collaboration between projects. So think of this as a networking opportunity without having to fly somewhere. Okay. Okay. So next slide, please, Gabriella. Okay. So as you may know, as I've already said, DEDEP project encourages participation across the different strands of the Digital Europe program, and today we've got over 100 people registered to the webinar, which is fantastic, and 45% of which are women, which I think is great and kind of bucks the trend in terms of gender balance in many areas which the digital program covers. You can see the different types of organizations which are represented in the chart to your left, and also the countries which are represented. And you can see, many from Italy, from France, and Germany and Spain, and also Ireland there, I see, which also reflects some of the responses we got into our big questionnaire. Okay, we have 60 projects represented as well, which is important as we try to build our community. So if you go to the next slide, please. So just a reminder, if you've not been to one of our webinars before, the objective of the DEDEP project is, if you go to the next slide, please, is to basically create a framework for support services on dissemination and exploitation, to analyze needs of digital funded projects and requirements in this field, and to design and deliver a set of pilot services where we can test what type of support projects funded by the Commission require. In the digital programme, there is no research. This is all about delivering services to, in particular, SMEs to help them, for example, adopt artificial intelligence solutions, quantum technology, so new technologies which will help them make a better impact themselves as well. So, however, reaching SMEs can be problematic and difficult, and we've seen this in many of the encounters we've had with projects. So our pilot services look to address this topic and these challenges so projects are able to get a bit of extra help in this area. And also, as a pilot, we need to find what has worked when we deliver our pilots, what hasn't worked, and what would be useful for future actions in this area were the Commission to go on with this type of activity. You can see the partners in the consortium. We're a very small consortium. Trust IT Services, our sister company Compla, and Metagroup. So Metagroup are important because they coordinate the Horizon Europe booster, which already delivers similar types of services to research projects. And whereas Trust IT, we're one of the partners in the booster, and we deliver dissemination services in this area. Okay, but the digital program is a very different game. As I've said, this is all about taking solutions to market, things which are ready and things which can be useful to, in particular, to SMEs. Next slide, please. Okay, so we sent out a questionnaire around targeting digital projects last month, and we've managed to gather 75 responses from different digital projects, which is fantastic, and actually quite a large percentage of when you compare how many projects are currently funded under the digital program. So we're very, very pleased about that. Thank you for anyone who did respond. We got responses from different people, okay, which was interesting too. So the majority of responses came from coordinators, but also we got replies from dissemination and exploitation managers of projects as well. So this is good. It's quite interesting to see the difference in detail in some of the answers, and also a couple of cases where we had two responses from the same project and we had slightly different answers as well. I think this reflects the state in many different projects, not only digital funded projects, but any type of project where there's a bit of collaboration. There's a good spread as well in terms of the life cycle, so the stage of the projects which responded. This perhaps reflects the stage of the digital program itself, with the majority of projects who responded in the middle stage. So they've been going on for over 6 months now, and they're not towards the end of their project. Okay, so go to the next slide, please. Okay, and we got a good response, as I said, geographically. Generally the main countries which are funded through the digital program are represented, and also across the different strands of digital too. So you can see that the biggest respondent was under advanced digital skills, which is the area which Brendan's project focuses on, and there's a good spread between that and the cloud data and our AI and accelerating best use of technologies. Okay, we go to the next slide, please. Okay, so interestingly, we have a number of projects which, quite a large percentage of projects which have not identified which results will be exploited. This is interesting. Perhaps this is due to the wording of the question. I think a large percentage of projects know what their results are going to be, but perhaps they haven't, established an exploitation plan based on those results. So what we'd like to do is follow up with some of these responses to find out if this is the case. Perhaps the projects do know which the results are, but they don't have a proper plan behind it. So this would be interesting to explore further. We also saw that the majority of projects have identified KPIs as well, which is important. But it would be interesting here to understand when the KPIs were established and how detailed they are. Were they established in the proposal? In the description of action? Or have they then been improved and given more detail in the dissemination plan of the project? It's a bit concerning that just over 25% of projects don't have KPIs. And as we'll see later, this is one of the target areas for the pilots which we're planning to deliver. So these 26.7% of projects could be applying for these pilots when they start in June. Okay, if you go to the next slide, please. Okay, then, of course, the question on barriers. What barriers do projects have when it comes to dissemination? And this, again, is an interesting one. It could be a frustrating one for the dissemination manager in terms of there's a lack of resources allocated to these types of activities when the proposal has gone through. So they're finding themselves possibly with high KPIs or difficult targets to meet and a limited budget from this. The limited engagement from stakeholders or end users as well is an interesting point. That's very it's a high barrier, and we've seen this in attending different events from the digital community across the strands, with SMEs obviously being a main target stakeholders. They're quite notoriously difficult to engage with. So thinking about how messaging is done to the SMEs in terms of the impact that results could have is something which could be considered. I remember being at a big digital innovation hub event, and there was a really nice presentation where a best practice was cited, where they basically said when you're talking to SMEs, you need to talk about the impact the solutions you're offering are going to have on the company tomorrow, so that they can really see the difference, the immediate difference that the technology or the solution may make. And it's more difficult for them to envisage impact, long-term impact, which is less immediate, shall we say? Okay, so these are things that we've observed these are issues we've observed and engaging with different projects, and kind of it's borne fruit through the questionnaire that we saw. Okay, if you go to the next slide, please. And then the question around exploitation activities and challenges here, then you see similar issues again. So lack of resources. We'd like to go back to some of the projects, some of the 40 projects who cited this to understand if the resources issues is meant within the project lifetime or beyond the project lifetime, of course, because exploitation activities take place after the project too. And again, you can see the limited awareness or the understanding of the impact on the end user or the target audience is something which is a real challenge. But then you've got a number of other issues which you can see. There's about 4 or 5 issues which are challenging for over 20 of the respondents that we heard from, including scaling or adapting the result to broader contexts, identifying stakeholders as well, and then market conditions. I can imagine that this would have a direct impact too. So yeah, so very interesting results. And again, I'd like to thank all of the projects that did respond to the questionnaire. And on a final point, if you go to the next slide, we also saw that IP was something which has not been addressed in the project yet. So that's over 50%. So if we think back to the life cycle of where the projects sit, what stage of the project life cycle the projects are in, there was a, you know, I think it was around 20 which were towards the end, but here we have a very high number who have not addressed the topic of IP management. And again, this is one of the areas which we hope to address through the pilot services that we are going to be testing out. So yeah, so interesting data. And then the question, which of course is essential to us, what type of training or what type of resources could help improve the effectiveness of your exploitation strategy? And here we have things like training and capacity building. So perhaps through meetings or workshops directly with the projects, perhaps on a broad level or perhaps specific to the project, and best practices in knowledge sharing. And this is something that we're trying to collect. We'll hear about this later, where we're trying to collect best practices from and interesting stories from different funded projects. And this is why we have our panelists here for later in the webinar. And also tools and digital resources as well. So what resources already exist, what type of information is already out there to help guide beneficiaries in the project to improve their exploitation, so that they can put in place and establish a well-structured strategy right from the word go. Okay, so irrespective of the project lifetime, one of the recommendations ourselves and Meta Group have is to plan your dissemination and exploitation activities right from the word go. So it's not something that's thought of in the last 6 months of the project. Okay, so these need to be considered right from month one and in a perfect world. Okay, so if you go to the next slide, please. Okay, so on the 31st of March, we'll be opening a call for expression of interest to the pilots, and we'll have a webinar dedicated to that. And this will also be an opportunity to go further into the challenges and the needs and requirements that have been collected through the questionnaire as well. So we'll be delving a bit deeper into some of these responses in the webinar, and also opening up an expression of interest where projects can sign up and then could be selected for the pilots at a later date. Okay, thanks. Okay, so if you go to the next slide, I don't know if there are any questions at this point. I can't see anyone. Okay, so in the next part of the webinar, we're going to look at the actual pilots themselves. Okay, so we're going to be able to give a high-level view of them. And as I said, the pilots we are designing are around dissemination and exploitation support services. Okay, for projects funded under the digital program, and also for policy officers. Okay, so first I'll talk a bit about the dissemination services, which are for projects only. And then Lorenzo will be talking about the exploitation support services, which are for the projects too. And then very briefly around the type of support provided to policy officers. So based on the points I've just been looking at in the questionnaire, we we're taking these on board. Okay, so these are going to be influencing the responses from the questionnaire, will influence the type of support which is delivered in the pilots, in the pilot services. And of course, but the pilot services will be tailored to the project's needs. Okay, so we can identify a broad spectrum of topics of interest, but essentially we'll be looking at and engaging directly with projects. So this would be to, look at things around leveraging existing networks and resources. So what's already out there, as I said, which could enhance the way dissemination exploitation is carried out, and also we want to gather the feedback on the effectiveness of the pilots themselves. With when we get down to it, the real objective is to improve the way that a subset of the digitally funded projects are approaching dissemination and exploitation strategies. Okay, if you go to the next slide, please. Okay, the next one. Okay, so let's look first at the dissemination pilot actions. Okay, I'll go through, I've got slides on all three of them, but essentially the types of services are grouped into three different topics. So first of all, reviewing the dissemination plan. Secondly, encouraging collaboration and clustering, okay, between projects. And then finally, looking at how projects approach KPIs, so how they measure performance and how they evaluate performance and how they can use that information to improve and adjust their dissemination strategies. We are looking for, we will be running 30 pilots, okay? So we're looking for 30 interesting projects. We need to keep a representation from each of the funding strands, so each of the topics, the specific objectives in the digital program. So we'll have a number of projects from the advanced digital skills, a number of projects on cybersecurity, etc., and a number of projects on cloud and data. Okay, so we'll be respecting the different areas within the digital program. We'll also be looking at project maturity. So we do want projects which are mature, of course, because they'll be disseminating their results. They'll be at the stage where they're able to disseminate. But we also want a selection of projects which are relatively new, so that we can make an impact on the planning and strategies that they are able to put into practice and then be able to implement later on in their project lifetime. And also, as you'll see, we're looking at clustering, so we're looking at groups of projects so that we can help them carry out joint dissemination activities. Okay, next slide, please. So let's take a look at the first pilot, which is the dissemination plan review. Okay, so here, what we're looking for are projects which have a dissemination plan in place, and the support that will be provided is looking at the document itself, understanding the plan which has been put on paper, and what the available budget is. Okay, so we want to look at what's expected and then what the budget is. So all of the recommendations that we give are realistic. And this is something which is important in terms of how achievable objectives are, and being able to adjust your dissemination plan accordingly if you promise too many things, for example, or too little things as well. So identify what activities and results are to be disseminated. So in particular, this is important for target stakeholders as well, understanding who results are for, what the value proposition is, and if it's well defined, and also well defined and well messaged. So is the messaging around the impact and the impact of the results on the stakeholder clear? Is it easy to understand? One of the challenges we saw in the questionnaire was that it's difficult for them to look for SMEs or the target stakeholders to understand the solutions or services because they're over technical. So have things been simplified? Are the impact of these services and the immediacy of them communicated to the end user? And the other thing that we look at is also the database collection and management, and how you can build a community and keep track of that as well, and make sure that procedures are in place to constantly grow the community, and then to understand dissemination channels as well and strategies which can be used. So exploring different channels such as websites, social media, but also events as well, and making sure the events are tailored to the group of people that you're speaking to. Okay, and how you speak to them as well. Are you pitching right to a group of SMEs or not? So lots of considerations, and also around campaigns and how to manage them. So everything we want to provide here is practical and tailored to the project, really, so that they can pick them up and run with them. Okay, if you go to the next slide. The second pilot is around collaboration and clustering. Okay, so this can be actually to support existing clusters, like the ones we'll be hearing from later on. Okay, but around dissemination activities. Okay, so maybe the clusters are looking at specific topics, and you know the pilot here would help the project which is organizing the clusters and those involved to carry out some kind of joint dissemination activity, perhaps targeting a stakeholder group they have in common. Okay. The other point is to create new clusters and to identify other projects which are relevant to the applicant project. So actually going and finding other projects which are maybe funded under the same core, or even better, they're maybe funded under different strands, but are targeting this similar type of stakeholder. Perhaps, for example, in a vertical sector, or perhaps in a geographical region. So looking to establish collaboration between perhaps testing and experimentation facility with the digital innovation hub on a topic of cybersecurity, for example. You've got 3 different strands there, and maybe 3 different projects collaborating together. And then to actually identify a timeline of activities that the group can carry out, and importantly, distribute roles and responsibilities among them. If you go to the next slide, and we come to the final pilot, which is around performance metrics and evaluation. So here, this is the tricky part of understanding what the KPIs are, okay, and being able to monitor and continuously measure the impact that your work is having, okay? So supporting identifying quantitative but also qualitative KPIs, and trying to match these and monitor these with your engagement and stakeholder interaction. So that is basically an overview of the dissemination services pilots, that will be run. And if you go to the next slide, we'll move on now to the exploitation services. So Lorenzo, I'll hand over to you.
Here I am. Thanks, Nicholas, and good afternoon, everybody. It's nice to see you all here today for having this webinar and presenting what we can offer to US beneficiaries under the DEDEP.eu program. So just to continue to what Nick said about the dissemination pilot, we will have also specific focus action on the exploitation. So as you can see here, maybe, the main two activities that we will run are divided in two areas. One will be the results incubator, which, it's, I think, very linked to what also we discovered. And this is, aligned also with, our, input around what we can offer for support you from the questionnaire, the analysis that, we presented at the start. It seems that quite a lot of projects, were not able to identify which are the main results that you would like as beneficiaries to exploit. So this first line of action will be focused on this aspect. So giving you the tool, the support in order to have a perfect understanding of which are the results or what is the result that you would like to exploit within the specific result initiative you're carrying on. And then, of course, what we define the second pilot action, the market support, which means more around, we said commercialization strategies and connecting with relevant stakeholders. Here, the meaning is to give you an appropriate way to understand which is the best, let's say, use model that you would like to implement within the result that you have identified. And this is pretty important about, the results that, you understand how to properly use these outcomes, let's say, that are coming from the project. And based on these two pilot actions, we would like, with these two lines, to give you, give the right tools and support, that the project, the initiative you're carrying on, it's, achieving or able to achieve the famous impact that you have been also evaluated within your proposal. And just to remark that, you have also a sort of mandatory clause in the grant agreement, which is asking you to exploit the result even after the project. So we will also cover this aspect around, when is the right moment in the project to think how to structure the activities, the exploitation activities, when also the project is over, because it's quite important for you to cover that moment, but basically when the project is ending and the exploitation activities will be not carried out anymore. So it's pretty important that also during the project we're giving you support in how to understand how to do this. Next slide, please. Yeah, the pilot structure we already discussed about the two lines, the capacity build, the two lines. But we would like also to stress that these kind of lines will be basically delivered through two main ways. The capacity building, so group workshop, where we onboard a specific number of projects. As Nick showed before, we will launch this expression of interest in 1 month, that's 31st of March. So we would like to receive applications in order to select projects that, can participate in this capacity building. We will, support and give explanation about the mindset, the tools that we would like to introduce for the specific, topic discussion around the exploitation. The one-to-one support will be just more, bilateral meetings, basically between, experts from DEDEP and the beneficiaries selected for addressing the specific, I would say, points from the specific project. We would like, in the capacity building to have two main sessions. One, again, it's about, the theoretical presentation, let's say, or the kind of tools that we would like to support you to work on, give you the right mindset. And then on the second session, we will ask you to work in breakout rooms, also in a specific case study that give you the right, way for start to work within the specific tools that we are introducing, okay? We would like to to use an interactive approach, because I think we experience also in other initiatives, from my experience also from about delivering the booster services, that having interactive approach is quite useful for you as a beneficiary. So that's why I would like to devise these sessions more theoretical with one with a business case that can help you to understand how the tools should be utilized, and then you will be asked in the one-to-one support to work for the specific, or your case around the tools that we have been introducing. And then with the DEDEP experts, you will receive a specific, support around feedback, insights around the specific tools that you have filled within the case, the project that you are running. Next slide, please. Of course, all these kind of pilot actions will be very important for us as the DEEP project, because all this kind of pilot action is based on a framework that we are going to develop in the next 2 months, where basically we will, define how the Digital Europe program can increase the dissemination exploitation activities. So with this kind of pilot actions, we would like to collect feedback from you as beneficiaries, so to increase and improve the framework that we will develop by April 2025. So we would like to understand if this kind of framework, the assumptions that we had within the DT project, it's something that can work not only with you, as pilot, but also can work for whoever kind of beneficiaries that is, under the Digital Europe program. And of course, we will also create a monitoring dashboard to understand, how the specific pilot help us to assess if the framework was strong enough, let's say, well structured for, taking then, under, the development of the European Commission, but also for other beneficiaries. Next slide. Yeah, this is the kind of approach we would like to give. It's always, to help, the European Commission, but yes, beneficiaries to understand, that this kind of exploitation is something that it's not only coming when you start the project, and maybe in the second part of the project, most of the times you're thinking about how we can exploit, but the exploitation is something that, born when you start to have the proposal writing. So as you know, you receive evaluation for the specific impact section. So that's why with the kind of approach we would like to use in this framework, but also in the pilot, we would like you to start to think about this, exploitation activities, how to structure the exploitation activities since the scratch of the project, okay? And then, of course, what would be important is that, how also the European Commission, can better stress and evaluate the dissemination exploitation activities during the monitoring of the project, or during the reporting period, to better understand if you as beneficiaries you are going align the track that you have presented in the proposal writing. And of course, what is pretty important is that exploitation activities, but as well dissemination activities, are not ending when the project is over, when the grant of the European Commission is over, but you need, as you know, in the grant agreement, to continue the exploitation and dissemination activities also after the end of the project, something in the grant agreement. So that's why I would like also to offer you this perspective to understand during the period of the project, when you need to start to think at what's going after the project. So how to structure the consortium, the partners, to understand how to move next for continuing the exploitation activities. This is just link this slide to clarify that the exploitation pilots will be, of course, what we have presented so far, focus on the beneficiaries under the Digital Europe program. But on parallel, let's say, we will also run a pilot activities for the officers from the European Commission, because we would like also to help them to better, evaluate, to better understand if the specific projects beneficiaries that are applying or have been financed by the Digital Europe program already working from the scratch around the specific exploitation pathway, are implementing correctly the pathway, so to also give to the officers tools that can support you as beneficiaries in improving your dissemination exploitation activities. So that's why we are having different pilots with the officers that will be focused on, let's say, 3 areas. The first one is about, helping them to better write, since the core requirements, how the potential applicants for the digital program can from the scratch stress better the dissemination exploitation activities. The second area is about evaluating the proposals around the specific dissemination exploitation plan, or let's say pathway that they identified from the proposal stage. And then the third area is around the monitoring. So during the project lifetime, when there is the reporting period, to help the officers to better assess if the beneficiaries are following an exploitation, dissemination activities that, let's say are aligned, are bringing the project to achieve the famous impact that, it's, part of the proposal also today. And I think that's it for the exploitation activities. So, of
Great.
course, if you may have question, doubts alongside, we can help you in clarifying doubts.
Great. Thank you very much, Lorenzo. That was great. Okay, so yeah, so interesting around the exploitation points, and you can pop your questions into the Q&A. We've answered some already. So please, if you have any questions for Lorenzo too, then do ask. Okay, so now we're going to move to our invited projects. Okay, so if you attended our last webinar, we focused on individual projects, but in this panel we have different projects which are engaging with large groups of projects or stakeholders in the whole digital landscape. Okay, so we have Brendan Rowan, who will be first to tell us about the lead project, Pablo Ivankovic, who's coordinator of the CoordinatF project, Ulrich Selderschlantz from the SISMI project, and which focuses on cybersecurity, and then Daniela Hackel from the DEDEP.eu project, which reaches out and improves knowledge to the community of national contact points for the digital program. Okay, so first I'll turn to Brendan. So as I said, Brendan is from BlueSpecs, and he is involved in the Leeds for 2030 project, which is funded under the Advanced Digital Skills strand. And this is very interesting because, of course, in this project, they engage with 49 different projects in different areas of advanced digital skills. So this is a huge undertaking, and they have a very important event next week in Luxembourg with very high profile agenda as well. So Brendan, I'll hand over to you.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Nicholas, and everyone for inviting us here today. So, as you mentioned, I lead the tech policy and skills practice within BlueSpecs, and particularly in this role, I'm the coordinator of the Leeds by 2030 project. So, the Leeds 2030 project is one of the coordination support actions. It's the second iteration of the CSA within the Advanced Digital Skills cluster, and as Nick has mentioned, it's something that is growing. So, we've been evolving in how we approach the engagement across the projects, but that's one area that we're looking at, because of course what's quite important in what we do is also provide that feedback loop within the policy development and find out what's happening within the projects. But today what I'm going to present is a bit more of an overview of what we're doing with the projects and the mechanisms that are in place. And I've seen already that there's some people on the call that I think are already participating in many of these initiatives. So the SO4, Strategic Objective 4 cluster, is focused on advanced digital skills. Our golden compass, or our golden north, is the digital decade target of 20 million more ICT specialists by 2030, and also convergence within the gender development there. And that's what all these projects are being brought together to do. So sitting in under that, and very specifically, we focus on advanced digital skills. Basic digital skills is covered under the Digital Skills Jobs Platform and under Code Week. And there's interesting when you're talking about impact and exploitation, because quite a lot of what the SO4 cluster is quite different to some of the other activities within the digital program, where it is about developing courses that are leading or forward moving in very, very new areas, either in the technologies that they offer and the talent they development, or how they do it. And the sustainability is actually how can we ensure that there's more courses developed and more talent generated after the project ends. So very much startup funding is what we see within this particular cluster area. We have at the moment 49 projects on the go, and we've been growing from just 20 a year ago. And we have all member states covered, including different areas, and a grand total of 573 organizations participating either as partners or associated partners within all these projects. To give you an idea, we split it into what we manage, we split into different areas. So one is the specialized masters and bachelor's programs. So these are called the specialized programs. They're meant to be giving academic and professional degrees at postgraduate level in areas such as AI, data, quantum, cybersecurity, etc. Then we have the short-term training courses, and there's some people on the call here today from those. The target audience of the short-term training courses is SMEs, purely delivering courses that to get the talent the SMEs need now and in the coming future for within these different areas. And they're called short-term because they have a variety of different delivery formats, from 1-day courses up to 6 months, whereas the specialized tend to be 1 to 2 years in their format. And then, of course, within that, there is the Cyberskills Security Academy, which is led by another CSA called Academius, well, CSA type. And there's a few projects coming on board there. They're delivering cybersecurity skills. Then we have the chips, semiconductors environment. We have the RES chips and the chips of Europe. We have the HPC as part of our friendly part of our cluster. And then, as I mentioned, we sit outside this with Leeds 2030. We have the Digital Skills and Jobs platform, which is a tender under the DEDEP. And then we have the Data Space for Skills and EmpowerEd for EdTech development as well. Very briefly, how we're working across the projects is two kind of types of actions that we're working on. One is continuous. So we have set up what we call subclusters, and these are where there's a particular topic or challenge that's occurring across enough projects for them to set up a working group on this. And this is led particularly by the projects themselves. In the past, we had the CSA leading on this, and we didn't like how it worked, because it meant that people didn't really have ownership or take it where I wanted to go. And that's how the subclusters work from now on. They're demand-led, they're set up, facilitated, but they're run by the projects themselves, and they deliver on different areas. We have a best practice repository. If you go to advancedskills.eu, you can look at the best practices that are being collected there in different themes, such as course design, attraction of recruitment and attraction, certification, accreditation, all the key issues that we have within the advanced digital skills area. And those best practices will turn into what we call the demo arena, which maybe we'll talk with the DEDEP later to help maybe give more publicity to the best practices through recorded videos. And then annually, we have the advanced digital skills dashboard. So we are collecting data regularly on what courses are being developed, and there'll be a dashboard soon that links demand in advanced digital skills with what the projects are offering, to allow people to explore the cluster a bit more detail. We have an annual report, which is the state of play, which will bring forward some of the best practices, some of the activities that we have. And finally, we have an annual summit. So this year it is going to be in Brussels in November. The date I should have by the end of the week, and if not, I'll follow up with it afterwards. And that's a chance to bring everyone together. And just on the subclusters, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but just they exist for a year. They're run by the projects, and they turn out best practices and some position papers that they then present at the annual summit. And that's it to give you an overview of how we're working within Leeds 2030 with the projects that we have.
Oh, that's excellent. Thank you very much, Brendan. Really structured approach, and a huge group of projects you've created, and I know that they're growing as well. So you expect the number to increase with newly funded projects too. So that's really interesting, and also the different areas that you address too, and of course the different dissemination actions that you mentioned too, like the summit and the state of play. So if you've got any questions for Brendan, then please write in the chat. And if you're interested also in engaging with this group, then please get in touch with Brendan too. Okay, great. Thank you very much. So I'll now turn to Ulrich on the topic of cybersecurity. Ulrich is involved in a project called CISME, which isn't a CSA, and focuses on small SMEs and providing assistance to SMEs. And they've basically tried to group together 19 projects funded under the same call. The call looks at supporting the adoption of cybersecurity solutions and providing these tools to the SME community. So Ulrich, I'll hand over to you now.
Thank you very much, Nick. Also, thanks for the invitation. Yeah, so let me see if I can find the right windows to start sharing again. I was actually just heading out for another coffee. But very interesting to see all of your results and to learn from the different experiences, and actually also to see that I think all of us together are experiencing the same challenges and issues. So definitely good to raise this here. So indeed, we're focusing more on the digital cyber programs. So that's cybersecurity. There's been up until now 6 cyber programs. And so as Nick was rightfully saying, that we started off under the uptake mechanism, which was the 2022 series of activities under this program. We actually started to move further away from just only uptake, because we did see that there were other types of domains that were of interest as well. So the original 19 actually took place in 2022 Cyber 03 uptake. But there was an additional call there that was added, which was the B03, where another 6 projects were added. So in total, there are now 25. And then we did notice that actually in the core topic of uptake, which is indeed, as Nick was saying as well, focusing slightly more towards SMEs with solutions towards SMEs on cybersecurity, that also started to expand in many other different types of projects that had solutions for SMEs on the one hand side, and alternatively, the uptake programs also had offerings for other domains, as you can see here. So not going to dwell into too much detail, but just to give you a bit of a perspective, we are now trying to cover about gathering 85 projects within the cyber programs. And so we're talking here about the 3 main cyber programs. There have been a couple of them before, and that there will be some following afterwards as well. We also leave the floor open continuously to the different programs to actually suggest others that might be added here as well. So to give a couple of indicators here, as you can see, in 2022, there was also some activities towards the NIS directive. There's also other types of EU legislation in 2023. And also in 2024, there were things in relation to the CRA. So all of these topics, even if you're not very familiar with the domain of cybersecurity, many of those topics actually had to do with the developing regulations and supporting the policies. And so therefore also impacting, of course, the SMEs, or basically the target and entities that we were trying to relate to. So we started basically by organizing quarterly meetings. We are now shortly in the 4th one that we'll be organizing, where we continuously try to, by inviting the projects to present during about 8 or 10 minutes on their projects, was to try to get an understanding of the different projects by the projects, and also the different participants, what their focus areas were. And of course, trying to find some ideas on where there might be overlaps, but equally so where we might be able to find complementarities. We recorded most of those sessions. We shared those sessions with the different participants today, and also the ones which were added on later on. We started doing some analysis on these things, and basically also tried to figure out, are there joint interaction activities that we might be using our joint experiences on, or even joint events that we would be doing. And so this is indeed what we started doing. So in the first place, we have now a platform, an online platform, which is basically part of our KISME program website. And I'll talk about KISME in a second. So under this website, we started listing out all of the different projects themselves, listing also out what they're specifically targeting, the types of technologies that they bring along, the types of regions where they're active. So you can also see some of the projects are more active in Western Europe, some more in Eastern Europe. So that means that you can find immediately complementarities. Some of them are trying to do something similar, but they can build upon each other's small experiences. So there's many different collaborations that can be found. And going more into detail on these, we try to list all of this out. Why do we do that? And you can say, and probably I think all of you might find this as well. One could consider, okay, why isn't in this case the Commission or actually in this case the ECCC doing this? Well, they don't really have the means nor the capabilities as in resources to do this. So here we as the projects are trying to support this towards the ECCC and the EC to facilitate getting more of a perspective. So they list out the projects by themselves, and we take it a step further and we try to interact with all of the different entities. So what do we see? Well, we see that there's definitely complementarities in many different things, in concepts, in target audiences, in learning experiences, the way that we can actually team up and doing things together. Also, when we are, for instance, organizing an event in one location, we invite some of the other partners to join in, to also use our facilities to promote themselves, and we do the same reversely, amongst others, because we try to target, as European projects, of course, also other member states. And it's always easier, of course, if you have a partner on site that might be able to organize an event or that does something where you can simply add your resources to. And so in the end, we see that all of these things, and I mean, it's now just listed out as text in bullet points, but I think you can get a picture that by doing this, you get to know each other a lot better. You can start finding easier about each other when you meet up at events. You can immediately start talking about potential joint ideas. But equally so, because as we are moving out, in this case, with KISME to SMEs, we have an offering, and the offering for SMEs is basically on the basis of the original platform that we offer, so different types of technologies. But thanks to the uptake program and thanks to the other programs, we find additional types of technologies and offerings, for instance, in terms of standardization, for instance, in terms of skills creation, in terms of fishing, in terms of smaller things and larger things, that we can also start adding to the SMEs that we are trying to promote to. So we see that many of the activities that we aim to do, and within KISME, the main goal is to improve the cyber resilience of small and medium-sized companies in Europe. So we reach out in other member states thanks to the different partners, and we allow other partners to also provide their technologies and services into our target markets and our core markets. We use the same experiences that we have here, so we build upon each other's expertise when it comes to how do we target specifically these SMEs. We do assessments. We provide our assessment platform and mechanism also to others, and reversely as well. So we see where we can actually meet up and build upon each other's expertises and experiences. And so a final one to end up with is actually another program, is the Cyber 06 program, everything in relation to the Cyber Resilience Act. So, for instance, on this one, we actually did a whole webinar to the NCCs, the National Cybersecurity Centers, this morning. And also here, the focus is really on bringing together different experiences and developments when it comes to CRA. And so we have an objective in creating additional open source technologies to support companies when they're creating their products with digital elements, and they need to comply to the new regulation. But there's so many different things that need to happen in that compliance to the new regulation that only within our own project we cannot do that. So we have to be able to rely upon other capabilities. And so finding the gaps within our domain and with their domain, we find immediately complementarities that we can share. And so in this way, we can actually share those experiences also towards the NCCs, which are eagerly looking for those experiences to bring into the member states and to help their own companies then building it forward. So we are gathering, we're bringing it together, and we are picking up on those experiences and bringing them again to the member states, in this case through the NCCs, or the European level, in this case then to the ECCC. So I'll stop with this, and I'll leave you my contact details in case you would like to reach out further in either one of those different activities. But thank you very much again, Nick, for letting us sharing these experiences.
Thanks, Ulrich. And yeah, it's very interesting there, the approach that you've got in terms of how attractive you're making the solutions to the SME community you have. And I know you have a lot of market experience as well. So I think you bring this to the project, and that's very important in how you speak to this group of stakeholders, and making things attractive and easy to understand, and things that can be understood quickly and effectively. So thank you very much, Ulrich. If you've got any questions for Ulrich, then please pop them into the Q&A box. Okay, great. So now I'll turn to third panelist, Pablo Ivankovic, and he's the coordinator of the CoordinaTEF project, which is a coordination support action, specifically around creating collaborations between the different testing and experimentation facilities, and supporting SMEs and businesses in bringing AI-based technologies from lab to market. So these facilities are very important for achieving this and taking these technologies to market, and they're available to different companies around Europe. So Pablo, over to you. Thank you very much
thank you for having me. Let me share my screen then. Okay. So yeah, thank you once again. As you mentioned, CoordinaTEF is the coordination and support action that is working together, sort of clustering the AI sectorial testing and experimentation facilities. So maybe just to start, we can see what actually is a testing and experimentation facility. So these are large-scale reference sites that are usually just in one country, that are open to AI providers to test and scale up their AI solutions. So these are a combination of both physical site and digital facilities that can enable both software and hardware testing and experimentation in real-world environments. And the idea is to support validation and demonstration so that these providers can get their innovations to the market. So far, there are 4 sectorial testing and experimentation facilities that are focused on agri-food, healthcare, manufacturing, and smart cities and communities. So you can see there are 4 logos here. And the special thing about CoordinaTEF is that all 4 organizations coordinating these testing and experimentation facilities are part of the consortium. So what is CoordinaTEF concretely doing? CoordinaTEF is working on advancing Europe's commitment to drive innovation and trustworthy AI deployment. So this is a 4-year project that started last October. So we have just started. And the idea is to create collaboration synergies across TEFs, sort of to harmonize their service level, help them share knowledge, best practices, and sort of create a common baseline across all 4 of them, support them to become sustainable, which is a very important thing, figuring out what's going to happen once the European funding ends, facilitating collaboration between them and other relevant initiatives, that is contributing to the creation of the European AI innovation ecosystem and sort of consolidate them. And then also we are empowering TEFs with additional know-how on EU policies development, their conformity and compliance services. So on the right-hand side, you can see the consortium, which has course, Intelar Consulting. Then we have Trust IT and Compla, and ADRA, and the four organizations leading the TEF, so IMEC, CA, FBK, and Charité in Germany. In a very specific way, what we are doing is transversally supporting these TEFs across the board to consolidate their business plans, enhance their compliance and conformity services, and promote cooperation between them so that they can sort of operate in a way that is both efficient, that maximizes impact, and reduces burden for them individually. On the right hand side, we have detailed what we identify as the main outcomes, what we are concretely and in a tangible manner sort of co-creating alongside TEFs, and that we want to live. So the first one is a user journey. The idea here is to create a sort of roadmap that can help SMEs, startups, innovators navigate the European AI ecosystem. And so a sort of user journey that can help you understand when you have an AI solution or an idea, what initiative in the European ecosystem you should refer to, or how to move from one to the other. Then creating a blueprint for future TEFs. This is gathering the lessons learned from the existing TEFs, best practices, what they're doing, how they're operating, what should be done, and then providing it sort of in a way that once new TEFs are being funded, they can follow these blueprint and sort of avoid the costs of learning these on the job. We're going to deploy also a help desk within the coordinative website that is going to provide responses to both the TEF consortia as well as their stakeholders. And then we are going to cross-reference it with other initiatives such as the DTA for the European Digital Innovation Hubs, or eventually the joint undertaking for the AI factories and so on. And lastly, brand identity. We want to support AI TEFs in codifying and consolidate their identity and their unique value proposition to distinctively position themselves in the market, so that whenever an SME or a startup is looking for the type of support and services that TEFs can offer, they know what a TEF is and they know who to refer to. So lastly, the other big focus that we have is something that I've mentioned in the previous slide, and that is networking and collaborating with other initiatives. We understand that TEFs are just one piece of this larger puzzle that is the European AI ecosystem, and the idea is to contribute to creating a seamless pathway for European innovation to reach the market. We have started exploring the collaborations between TEFs and European Digital Innovation Hubs and TEFs and AI Factory. This is leveraging that several partners within the TEF consortia themselves are also partners in European Digital Innovation Hubs, or have been or are part of the winning proposals of the AI factories that are to be set up. And the idea is that together with these initiatives, and eventually to do the same with regulatory sandboxes and all the others that are listed here, sort of come together, workshops on ideas, brainstorm, and figure out clearly when a customer, when an SME should be dealing with an EDIH, when it should be going to a TEF, how can they be referred one to the other, and essentially make sure that if a user arrives at a TEF, it can reach any other of
I think we've lost Pablo. Perhaps wait a second. Okay, I think Pablo must have connection problems. So But I mean, he's managed to give a very clear overview in particular on the cross, so different collaboration points between the TEFs and also the digital innovation hubs, for example, and the broader landscape that the TEFs are trying to engage with, and that's very important, of course, if they're going to have SMEs using their facilities. And of course, the digital innovation hubs are an excellent source for reaching SMEs. But of course, what you're providing them needs to be good, so that the digital innovation hubs are providing these services which are useful for them and will be therefore used. So, we'll thank Pablo. Hopefully, he'll be able to make it back. But I'll hand over now to Daniela, and Daniela is involved in the DEDEP.eu project. So, Pablo, you're back.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I would have guessed
that's
that being
okay.
in the office, the connection would have been stable, but that was a mistake.
No problem. No problem. Did you have anything else you wanted to add? We lost you when you were, and if not, then we can move to Daniela. I think you'd managed to cover most points, but back over to you.
No, yeah, thank you. I think I have gotten to the last slide, I guess, on the ecosystem. So just feel free to contact me if you have any questions or comments. Happy to answer. And thank you.
No problem, Pablo. Yeah, when you were away, I was just saying how important the network was, and these different activities you're doing to encourage connections between them. Okay, so Daniela, over to you and the DEDEP.eu project, which of course is establishing networks with the national contact points.
Can you see my screen? Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So thanks a lot for inviting us to have a few words about the national contact points as well here. Hello from Vienna. So I'm Daniela Hackel. I'm a national contact point for the Digital Europe program, basically since the beginning of Digital Europe in Austria. So we were supporting it just before the NCPs were even nominated from the European Commission. Well, the good thing is that since last year in October, at the same starting point like you had, Pablo, I think, we have this DEDEP.eu project now, so we can work in a community of NCPs, which facilitates our work, which makes it possible to share our experiences and to learn from each other, and also hopefully to better consult our proposals. So the Digital Europe, the DEDEP.eu project has been funded under the Digital Europe program, so we are running for 2 years until 2026. The aim is basically to provide services for national contact points, but additionally, we also do some activities for applicants or directly for applicants, but mainly concentrating on trainings and events like brokerages. The idea of the DEDEP.eu project is kind of creating a dynamic community of NCPs to support each other and to also share the best practices or best practice examples we have nationally. So what we don't have in DEDEP.eu is a web page. So if you want to hear more about DEDEP.eu activities, you have to consult your local NCP, your regional NCP. Just for the reason that we are basically supporting the work of NCPs, what they have to do on a national basis. The aim of DEDEP.eu is just to bring the NCPs to kind of the same level of knowledge and to offer and give access to the same information and knowledge to all NCPs. So for the Digital Europe program, as you know, I mean, the thematic areas are very diverse. And we also have more than, I think, 120 NCPs dealing with the Digital Europe. So in some countries, it's NCPs only for the cybersecurity part. In some countries, it's NCPs for the main work program. Even in Austria, where we do have NCPs for cybersecurity part, we do have different people dealing with the SO1, the SO6. So the structure is very complicated, but the project allows us to actually access each other and have kind of a platform where we are able to talk to each other as well. The consortium itself consists of 14 countries. We are coordinated by Hub Brussels. Marion Perrin is our coordinator. And the important thing here is that it's only, let's say, 14 beneficiaries and 14 countries, but of course the services are there for all the NCPs. So this is really important because we're another platform, we really reach out to all the NCPs, and we are the help desk for everyone. So no worries if you don't find your country on this slide. There is an NCP in your country if there has been nominated one, but I think the member states are quite good covered. And on my last slide, I will share a link where you can directly have a look who is the NCP in your country. So what are the main objectives of DEDEP.eu? We have different target groups. As I said before, we do have the NCPs as a target group, where we try to allow the interaction to support each other in DEP-related questions. In the end, everything is for the proposer, of course, but the aim of the project is to teach the NCPs to make them able to best consult their proposers, their applicants. Yes, so we do support the NCPs in their daily work. What's also a benefit of having the DEDEP.eu project is to kind of speak with one voice also in front of the Commission. So there are a lot of questions in our communities, questions we receive from the proposers, and the project allows us to share those questions, to help each other, but it also allows us to put forward the question to the Commission. Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of the other projects presented before, they also kind of support the European Commission. So the main aim of DEDEP.eu is basically also to make the program visible all over Europe and associated countries. So that's the main aim actually of the European Commission, why the DEDEP.eu project does exist. Yep, another target group is the DEP as a program, as I said, to raise awareness, to attract new players to the program. So now it's running since 2021, and there are a lot of proposals actually already in there, but the Commission is still looking for new players. So again, a KPI actually, and a goal of the DEDEP.eu project is also to increase the variety of proposals in the Digital Europe program, which is quite a challenge. But this is basically put to NCPs on a national level, where they have to improve the work, and they have to be quite active to reach out to additional organizations who are the right ones to submit proposals in Digital Europe. And for the DEP projects, for the running projects actually, who are also the target group of the DEDEP project, we help them on a national level mainly to also give them a platform, in also giving them a platform where they can promote their results, to promote their successes, and to promote what they have been doing in the project, to get back to the actually benefiting communities in the European member states. Yep, and content-wise, DEDEP.eu also concentrates on really supporting all specific objectives of DEP. So we create knowledge within a project, which we share with all the NCPs. We act as a one-stop shop. If an NCP has a question, we try to also link to other programs, to other funding programs, and we try to give the NCPs and indirectly the proposer a good picture of what results maybe from Horizon Europe they can build on when handing in a Digital Europe proposal, etc. So we have a couple of tools which we use for that. Yeah, but I don't have enough time to explain everything. Yeah, the main instruments we do use to reach our goals is workshops and trainings for the NCPs. We do also networking events, as I said before, for the proposals. So there will be probably one in Denmark where there is the big policy event. So we're at the moment discussing what options we do have, where we try to get together the Digital Europe community to also link this community to similar organizations coming from the research program, for example. We also do create, as said before, resources, and we do create content. So we act as a major, like a contact point for the NCPs in giving them support to legal and financial questions. There are a lot of questions in the Digital Europe regarding security, ownership control, etc. You might have faced this already. And of course, since DEP is not a lone-standing program, we also collaborate with other synergy programs like Horizon Cluster for Digital, EU for Health. So any funding program which is thematically linked to Digital Europe. So it's a various thematic areas, serving everything is quite a challenge, but yeah, we're working together quite closely with the other NCP networks as well. Yeah, that's basically what DEP4All is doing. If you want to get in contact, the best way is to just contact your national contact point for Digital Europe, and they can put you further and tell you about our services. So thank you very much, Nicholas, and thanks to everyone who is still here.
Thank you very much, Daniel. That's great. Really interesting. Okay, I've actually got a question for Pablo. There's a question in the Q&A. So Pablo, the question is there an MOU integrated in the start of a collaboration with an EDI, and what is the view on this pathway with EDIs and TEPs?
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, unfortunately, since I got kicked out, I couldn't see the Q&A anymore, but I answered on the chat. Essentially, we do not have an MOU yet in place. So far, the idea is to collaborate organically, sort of between the thematic working groups of the EDIH network and the sectorial TEFs. So the manufacturing working group will be working with the AI Matters TEF, which is the manufacturing one, and sort of start building that the report sort of there on a voluntary basis for EDIHs, and then figure out a more structured collaboration further down the road.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the MOUs are heavy documents as well, aren't they? So,
Yes.
yeah, having easier, lighter agreements is often something worth looking at. Okay, so we've actually gone beyond the time of the webinar, so I'd like to thank all of our panelists and speakers for joining us. Really interesting, and of course to everyone who has joined, and in particular the people who've stayed to the end. So thank you very much, and thank you also for all of your questions. Gabriele, can you share the final slide? Is that okay? Because what we would like to do is we've heard 4 very interesting stories, and this is one of the things that we're trying to capture in the project is experiences and stories. Basically, we don't want to call them success stories. We want to call them inspiring stories from projects because we're interested not just in what's worked, but also challenges as well in approaching dissemination and exploitation. So as you can see, we just have an example template. The actual stories will not be in Latin, they'll be in English, but basically we'll be in particular contacting the projects who are on the call today, who have responded to the questionnaires and who are already in our little community, and we'll be asking you if you'd like to submit a story. And what we will then have is a new section on the website, so you'll get visibility from for your activities and your project on the DEDEP website. We'll be making sure there'll be connections and backlinks back to your own project websites. So it's a great dissemination opportunity for you to share your experiences. And of course, the experiences, like the questionnaire, will definitely influence the work that we'll be doing in DEDEP in terms of the design of the framework, in terms of the delivery of the pilots, and in terms of the recommendations that we provide to the European Commission towards the end of the project. So once again, thank you very much, everyone. And we just a reminder that the pilots will be opening the expression of interest at the end of this month, so you can sign up if you're and show your interest if you're interested in them. Okay, so have a lovely afternoon, everyone, and we'll be back with another webinar shortly. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.